create presence. There are some steps that I'm going to walk you through, and I'll speak to each of those steps and some of the different strategies that you can put in place. So the first one is for you to be prepared. And just so you know, this handout is on the site. If you haven't already downloaded it. And so you want to be able to know that, you know, you are taking the time to prepare for your meeting. For, let's say you have to call one of your coachees in, one of your employees in, to give them some feedback. And feedback is one of the tools. I am going to coach you on how to give feedback and how to receive. So don't worry about that right now. But let's say you have to give them some feedback, or even you're running your regular staff meeting. I know at your centers, many of you do have regular staff meetings. You've got to prepare, because if you ask any of the employees, your coachees, to present something at the meeting, speak to something, you actually expect them to prepare. So in your handout, you'll see that it will tell you about being prepared and why it allows and offer up a richer and more fulfilling coaching session. And it actually helps you to focus on hearing your coachees. So when you can really hear people, and later on when I do my coaching demonstrations for you, you're going to see how by being prepared and using the power of listening, I know what kinds of questions to ask next. But in my mind, I am not thinking about, oh, what should I ask? No, I'm actually listening and I'm fully present. And it's that full presence that actually helps you now to know, okay, this is where Phyllis is having some struggle or some challenges. Let me ask her about this, because I think it will shift or move her in a direction for solving whatever the issue is. So rather than wasting time thinking, oh, what do I say next? What do I say next? Just quiet your mind, listen deeply, listen intently, be fully prepared. Like, allow yourself to be changed by what the person is saying, because that means you thoroughly and deeply understand what it is they're saying. And it's from that understanding you're able to ask them challenging questions. You're able to make requests of them, and you're able to really get them to hold themselves accountable. And it's a very powerful skill once you've developed it that you'll find gives you amazing results. So when you prepare, it helps you to ask better questions of your coaches and thus better able to move them forward. So your preparation is one way that you model the behavior that you want to see your coaches demonstrate when they show up for a meeting. You don't want them to just show up with their coffee, come in, sit, cross their legs, and you just sip on their coffee as if they're at a live theater presentation. You want them to be actively engaged and fully participating to create whatever it is that you guys want to create in your centers. And then the second step in the 7 tips for creating the coaching environment is respect. We all know the importance of respect, and we also know we don't get respect until we actually give it to others. So there's a saying, Wayne Dyer, and I'm sure maybe somebody else before him said it, but you can't give what you don't have. So as someone who respects yourself, that is exactly what you have, and you have enough of it to give. So the respect piece in coaching is really tied also to the preparation. So because you respect your coachees, and because you know that you would expect them to come prepared to the session, you take the time to prepare. And you're going to treat the session with your employees now as any other important appointment. And so that means there's a lot of little things and distractions that you could participate in, but that will take you away from being fully present and thus need you to, third step here, practice or demonstrate commitment to working with your employees to develop them. And I should mention, because you're going to get the link for each course sent, so you'll actually be able to listen again to what we're talking about here, and you'll have all these slides in the link. You don't have to worry about writing down every bit of information on the slides. You can just write just the additional things that I say if you so desire. But I just want to let you know that you'll get these in the link sent out. So the third way to create a coaching environment is to be committed to it. Now, I've done a lot of work, and I still continue to work with many of your colleagues here in the province. I am just finishing up a 6-month contract with one of the centers where on a monthly basis I go in and I teach them how to use certain different aspects of coaching in the workplace. And this is done both for the management team as well as for the frontline workers. And everyone come together monthly for the large group teaching. And then I work with the managers. There are 4 managers in the center on a monthly basis, just the 4 of them in group sessions to help them really elevate their management, their supervising, and how they're putting into practice the tools that they're learning. And I share that story with you because I want to use it as an example of commitment. They committed to this and they stuck with it. And next week we're running the last session and wrapping it up. And we do evaluation before, and we're going to do evaluation after to see what changes have actually occurred throughout the program. So it's a really important investment that organizations make. And I actually do this work internationally. So it's not just, us here in Manitoba who are trailblazers and we kind of get this, but there's companies all over the world globally who see the value in taking a more of a managerial coaching approach to running their centers. And by the way, your centers, they're organizations. And if you think of it that way, you can help create some of the best experiences possible. So the commitment piece now means you have to do your homework just as you expect your coachee to do theirs. And when you do this, you're modeling again the behavior that you'd like for your coachees to demonstrate in their actions. Clarity is also an important step in creating the coaching environment. So you want to have clear guidelines set in terms of how you interact with each other, how do you give someone feedback, and like I said, we'll address that in a little bit. How do you, if you're having one-on-one session with the coach, you just let them know we have 20 minutes or 15 minutes. So when you set that up front, then they're not expecting to, again, come with their coffee, cross their legs, and spend lots of time in the office. And, when you shuffle them out after 15 minutes, they're not feeling slighted. So when you set clear timelines for how long you're going to be meeting, set an agenda, right, that creates clarity. And you ask them, contribute to the agenda, anything that they would like to see added, etc. That's how you're really bringing them into the fold. And remember, they don't have to have a title to be a part of creating and setting the agenda. You need to be focused and, of course, answering your phone, sending responses to text messages or so, or responding or sending them out or responding to them, that takes away. And I mentioned that earlier. So you've got to remove any and all distractions from the time that you're spending in front of your coachees and, make yourself unavailable. Let them know that you're not available until, and then you just set that. So that's all part of the creating that coaching environment. Flexibility and variety. I tell you, I love variety. I don't teach this course the same way every time, and I do this on a regular basis. I would get bored if we were to do it the same way over and over. So it's no different when you are working with your team, your staff, right? You want to look for different ways to work with them, to coach them, and to develop them, and choose a way that works best for them at that time. You know, a month or two down the road, you might change your approach depending on how much they've grown and their needs and the needs of the center and so on. So that's how you create that coaching environment through flexibility and variety. I just want to stress that coaching is a discipline that actually prepares your employees, your coachees to see the potential in themselves. But you have to see it in them first. And remember, coworker to coworker, director to assistant director, supervisor to frontline, you can still see potential in each other. You got to see that potential and draw it out. So people feel that they're in a very supportive work environment, and that requires you to be flexible and to be varied in your approach. And my most favorite one is to lighten up. So we take ourselves too seriously a lot of time, you know, and one of my executive directors in a center here in the city shared a story how when she took over being executive director some 8 years prior, she was so intense about the role because she felt she wasn't very well prepared, and the board just asked her, you know, you've been here a long time, you're a very committed and dedicated worker, would you like to be the executive director? And we have no one, and if you don't take it, we don't know what we'll do. So they kind of pressured her into taking it, which she did. But she was so stressed. She said she must have spent the first 3 years of being in that position not only coming up for air, you know, essentially. And so she never enjoyed the first 3 years. She was really tense, didn't know how to deal with the people who now were her co-workers, right, at the same level, to now she's their executive director. And she took this kind of a stiff approach, and, you know, things weren't going well at all. She said they were her most stressful 3 years until she started realizing, I got to lighten up here because it's going to kill me and I'm not going to survive this position. And then what's going to happen? So I say lighten up. I like to use humor. I like to tell, you know, funny stories, get people to talk about their day. Don't have to spend an hour doing it, but just really create the kind of center where your people are excited to come into work each day. Heck, they hang around after they're done working for a few minutes or so because they feel so at ease at home. So that's number 7. It's not 7 because it's the least important, but it's the first and the last will always be remembered. And so that's why it's there. So these are 7 ways that I have found to create and build that coaching environment. And as we coach throughout the next few weeks, you'll see how having some of these tips in place will really help with the coaching sessions or situations. So I kind of talked about each just now, but these slides just kind of reinforce what I had just mentioned a few minutes ago. So what happens when you're prepared and how it helps you to focus on hearing the coachee, and the respect that you demonstrate now, just a way of summarizing. You got to treat the session with your coachees just as you would any other important appointment. Where commitment and clarity are concerned, as I said before, you got to do your homework as you would expect your coaches to do. So whatever you say you're going to do it. One thing that irks me most is when people say yes to doing something and they don't deliver. I get just, drives me nuts. I'd rather you say, you know, no, I don't think I can do that. I can't do that. Just say no, please. But I know lots of people in my career, they have great difficulty saying no. But please, if you commit to something, do it. It's called modeling the behavior, and that's a very important leadership practice, is to do what you say you will do. So the clarity part, clear timelines, agenda, and how long you're going to be meeting. Focus and flexibility, again, you know, just remove all the distractions from your meeting, and of course, look for different ways to coach the employee and lighten up. So I wanted to end off with this. So for those of you who don't have a webcam, the slide here is saying, Dear God, I beg you to give me the wisdom to understand my boss, give me the love to forgive him, give me the him or her, give me the patience to understand his or her actions, but dear God, don't present me strength, because if you give me strength, I will break his or her skull. So we don't want people to get to this level. And so let's create that coaching environment to prevent them going down to this. And that's the power of lightening up. Any questions or any comments on what you've heard so far? Remember, if you are more comfortable sending me the message by through the chat or the email, please do so. If you have any stories that you want to share, I love to hear stories. So you can just either send it in and I'll read it out to share with the other group. I won't name you if you don't want to be named. But if you're comfortable just speaking to the group at large, just give me the hand raise signal and let me know whether you have something to say, and I should take a peek and see if there's anyone who has something to say. All right. So I don't see any hands, so it means I could probably move on, which we'll do. So now there's one of the handouts that's on the site is all about assessing readiness for coaching, and that's what we're leading with here. And I want to know just where you all are at in terms of that. So there's a little quiz that I'm going to send out to you